Blue Origin finally has a first-class ticket to Mars.
Has Blue Origin broken orbital mechanics?
Another NASA administrator?
And has China pretty much bagged the lunar race? All coming up on the next Orbital Edge. Hello, you found us for episode 2.7 of Orbital Edge. I'm your host, Chad, and next to me is our co-host, Jacob. And next to Jacob is our spaceflight correspondent, Crystal. And we've had so much cool epic launches in the last week. Crystal, why don't you take us away on those?
Yeah. So first up, we have Atlas V, which we're going to play the clip of.
We have ignition and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, carrying Viasat-3 Flight 2, adding unprecedented capacity to Viasat's global multi-orbit network.
Full thrust. 5 good SOPs.
Give me some head nods, you guys. Again, just the zero.
Vehicles cleared the
Not
tower.
too much, but you
Setting
know what I'm
up
saying?
pitch over.
Making it natural.
Vehicles entering its first throttle.
I always say in my space pods that when the engines light up like that the engines are punching the pad.
Oh.
And good indication of SOB
It
jettison.
sounds pretty impactful.
PLF separation.
So ULA's Atlas
Communications
V
separation.
launched the VIA Sat-3 Flight 2. This launch happened November 13th, 2025 at 10:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida at the Launch Complex 41. So this satellite is basically a huge internet upgrade. Once it's active, it will double VIA Sat's internet coverage. So this mission is really special because Atlas V is getting kind of close to retirement. So we won't get to see many more of these. And according to ULA's CEO, there are 13 Atlas V rockets remaining in their inventory. Now we have the New Glenn, which we'll play a clip of.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Lift up, detected.
Close motion.
New Glenn has cleared the towers.
Still seeing 7 good engines. 30 seconds into flight. Engine operating parameters continue with good at full thrust. Body weight response to normal. 40 seconds in.
All right, so Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket launched November 13th from Cape Canaveral as well, from 36A in Florida, and it carried 2 NASA spacecrafts called Escapade. These small probes are heading to Mars to study how solar wind affects the Martian atmosphere. Basically, it could help us understand how Mars actually lost most of its air. So this was actually a big milestone for New Glenn since it is a newer rocket. And finally, SpaceX Copernicus Sentinel-6B was launched the 17th of November at 12:21 a.m. So it's taking off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, and it launched from the Space Launch Complex 4E. Sentinel-6B tracks sea levels and ocean conditions, which helps us actually monitor climate change, which is pretty cool. And now let's move on to some space news. Jacob, what do you have to tell us?
Oh, I got some middle school drama for you. So, NASA has been having a little bit of a party the past couple of months with who will be the new NASA administrator. We started off the Trump administration with Janet Petro. She was an internal pick. She was just there until Trump could pick a more permanent nominee, and he did so in the early summer. He picked Jared Isaacman, who was going to go talk to the Senate about getting confirmed, but then after Trump and Musk had their little falling out and some information about Isaacman was revealed that he had been funding Democratic candidates in the past. He was kicked out of the nomination, and for a while there wasn't one. Instead, Sean Duffy replaced Janet Petro as the acting NASA administrator, and he was pulling double duty as both the acting NASA administrator and his previous role, the Department of Transportation secretary. So, busy man for sure. And all of that has continued to the present, but now we have a new addition to our little storyline. Jared Isaacman's back, and he's ready for more pounding. Guess what? I guess whatever went wrong, that he was kicked out, it's all flushed under the carpet now. He was originally kicked to the curb because Trump and Musk had their little falling out, and his situation with the Democratic funding of campaigns, but he's probably back now because all of it's not longer an issue, it seems, and because Trump and Elon Musk have made up. They've kissed and made up, they hugged. They're all good now, and we're back to status quo. Fun fact about Jared Isaacman, he is a former astronaut himself. He went on a couple of SpaceX flights. He is a billionaire, so he's got that in common with Trump and Musk. So, seems like he might be a decent pick. My question, though, is why is Sean Duffy out? Well, he's not yet. He'll be out soon if Isaacman is actually nominated by the Senate. And my best guess of why Sean Duffy's out, it's because Musk and Duffy haven't been getting along to the point that Musk called him Sean Dummy on X. So that's fun. But another update, Isaacman's nomination was thrown further into peril when a 62-page long dossier from Isaacman leaked to the press, and Isaacman confirmed that he did write it a couple of months ago. In it, he talks about his goals as the future NASA admin. He says that he wants nuclear electric propulsion for the new rockets. He wants a new Mars exploration program to be greenlit and sped up. And he wants to change the internal working structure of NASA. So he wants a lot of big changes that could shake up the industry, and that's probably why this document was leaked. Somebody doesn't want him to become the NASA admin because he's gonna change things. And if confirmed by the Senate, it seems that he wants to, quote, reorganize and re-energize NASA, and he wants to fast track that the Mars mission so quickly that the moon and Mars are going to be simultaneous missions for NASA. Chad, my question, is any of this realistic?
Yes and no. As far as the moon and Mars at the same time, I don't see that happening within this administration. I see the moon being the serious push right now for the next 2 to 3 years. But for Mars, it's probably going to happen in the next administration, which means Isaacman is not going to be under that term to take advantage and credit of the push to Mars. So it's realistically going to be more about the lunar exploration that we have right now, which is, of course, under contract with Artemis and SpaceX. So that's my thoughts on that.
Well, with all of that said, that's the drama for the United States' space administration. Let's learn about what's going on over in China.
Yeah, so it's not too good in China. We've had a private Chinese rocket failure, which we're going to take a look at their video right now.
Well, it looks like it started off strong.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it did not end well. So the Galactic Energy's Series 1 solid rocket went up from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in China, but things went very wrong. So in its fourth stage, it actually shut down early, and because of that, 3 satellites were completely lost. All right, so these pronunciations are going to be super rough, but the failed payloads included 2 Jilin-1 Earth observation satellites, plus 1 built by Zongbei University. Now, Galactic Energy did apologize for this, and they said that they are investigating. They're promising to learn from the setback and improve their rocket design and quality systems. But I have to ask you guys, what do you guys think about this?
Here's the thing. China's probably not going to release the onboard footage of the actual incident because that happened on, I think it was stage 3 or 4. That's way up there. That's in the vacuum of space. That's not anywhere in the atmosphere. And tracking cameras don't go that high up to capture footage. So yeah, we're probably not going to see anything from China, but we're probably going to get just a text-based incident report if we're lucky.
What about you?
I actually thought it was fascinating what they named the rocket. They called it Ceres, which is not only an exoplanet in our solar system, it also happens to be a Roman goddess, which makes sense. That's what the planets are named after. But the Chinese using Roman goddesses seems a little weird. Specifically this one, it's the Roman goddess of agriculture, grain, and fertility. I wouldn't say this rocket was particularly fertile myself, but you can be the judge.
So speaking of rocket failures, I heard Blue Origin actually had a great time and did the opposite.
Yes, the long-awaited Mars mission for the New Glenn rocket finally went up on November 13th. I actually personally got to see this rocket go up. It sounded so cool. It had this very low rumble that you don't hear from the Falcon 9 because there are 7 BE-4 engines on this thing, and those BE-4 engines, they're not small by any means. They're a little larger than the RS-25 engines that the space shuttle flew. Now, this mission was so cool because it pioneered the first ever L2 Lagrange point parking orbit, which kind of stop-gaps the trajectory to Mars. But the reason why they did this, like normally a Mars window to launch is not until 2026, but they were able to launch now using this parking orbit, which has never been done before. And what L2 Lagrange is, if we're going to throw this animation up here, this is basically the trajectory that the Escapade mission is going to take to Mars. But the two twin spacecraft are going to chill around Earth for about 6 months before they actually make that final Mars burn. But what they're doing in the Lagrange 2 point is they're taking advantage of the sun's gravitational pull and the Earth's gravitational pull at the same time. And they're playing a game of tug of war a little bit, but not exactly. It's really confusing. So what the Lagrange point is, the spacecraft sits in a gravity well where it's neutral. The sun only pulls on it so much so that the spacecraft can still orbit the sun like the Earth, but not so much to where Earth can then grab the spacecraft with its gravity well and then to keep it near Earth around the sun again. So the spacecraft can just sit there and not escape the sun's gravity or Earth's gravity. Normally launches have you either just do a circular orbit or just be put on an escape trajectory. That's not the case here. This thing is just out there chilling, and it's going to wait until 2026 to do that final TMI, which stands for Trans-Martian Injection Burn, for which these 2 spacecraft are going to arrive at Mars to study some solar wind and other solar weather activity.
Oh, hold on, Chad. I think you're losing me there.
I knew I was.
So, what you're saying is you can just park a rocket in space like you could park your car in a parking garage?
Exactly. It's the most fuel efficient way to do this if you're going to launch outside of a normal launch window.
Sounds good to me.
And they used to do this, well, they do this all the time, but they first pioneered parking orbits back in the early 1960s, where if you launched something, you'd park it. And then another spacecraft would launch days later so that the 2 spacecraft could meet each other in space. Well, the first thing launched would park, essentially, and then they would just wait for the next launch. They did this with the Gemini program. where the Titan II rocket launched a Gemini capsule, I think just a few days later, and then to go meet up with the other Gemini capsule so that they could both dock.
Isn't that what SpaceX wants to do for the Artemis missions?
Yes, they want to practice their refueling technology that they're testing. I don't know how that's going to go, but yes, they would essentially park Starship to, of course, wait for the Orion capsule to meet up with it and then transfer the crew to Starship. I don't know if they're going to do that around Earth. They may actually launch the Orion to the moon and Starship at the moon, and then they're going to both park there and then meet up. We don't know for sure yet because this moon infrastructure could change because of funding and things like that. So yeah, I don't know what else to tell you on that. One thing I missed is L2 is located 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, and it sits outside of Earth. So you've got the sun here, the Earth here, the moon goes around the Earth, and then Lagrange 2 is just outside of it. It's the sweet spot so it doesn't escape, but it's caught by the sun and the Earth, so it can just stay there. So a little bit more about the actual launch itself that I did miss earlier. This landing was awesome, and they did it on their second try. So that's 1 for 2 for Blue Origin. This booster lands like a Falcon 9 does on a drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean, but this time something different happened. It not only landed on the barge, the landing legs shot explosive bolts to the deck of the ship. And this reminds me of Kerbal Space Program where we would land on the moon and we'd shoot the winches on the surface so that after we landed, our craft wouldn't tip over and fall. So that's why they did it on the New Glenn, is so that it wouldn't tip over, because the landing legs on the New Glenn are not wide like the Falcon 9. They're really angled like this. They're stubby. So if it lands on the ship like this, 50-50 chance it'll tip over. So if they shoot pegs into the ship and lock it in place, well, there you go. And it's unique. And people have said that the engineer that designed it played Kerbal Space Program. So there you go.
I was about to say that. I was going to say, I bet you $10 he got the idea from Kerbal.
So I just kind of want to wrap up with this launch. Why is it important? Of course, I said earlier, solar wind and solar storm observations. This launch is also the proving grounds for Blue Origin for Mars exploration. And it also fills in a dry spell of scientific payloads launched in 2025. We haven't had a whole lot of science going up because of the budget cuts. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, the topic of the show is China beating us to the moon right now. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Welcome back. We are in orbit, so let's get to our main topic. Is China going to beat us to the moon? So we know that they're getting closer to landing astronauts on the moon, and their goal is 2030, and their lander is already in development. Their system is a lot simpler than ours, so it might help them get to the moon a little bit faster than us. If they're too close to beating us, it'll definitely push us to work faster and harder and get Artemis up and running and Starship. So yes, it is becoming a real race again, I would say.
Yeah, we just need NASA to fund it. Well, they probably will. If they really see, oh, China's lander has been finalized and it's already being affixed to a rocket, and it can actually put crew in it, oh, the US will start putting in the funding. Despite, Congress saying, oh, we should only give 2.4% of their total budget. Oh, they'll crank it. They'll do what they did in Apollo. So, yeah. What do you think, Jacob?
China is roughly 238,900 miles away from Mars. No different than us in the US. More seriously, though, I think the 2030 timeline is probably somewhat accurate. It might be a little bit pushed back than that, but their Long March rocket has proven itself to be fairly capable. It's just a question about the other components at this point. Is their lunar lander going to work? Is the capsule for the astronauts going to be safe? I don't know yet. What I really think is interesting is the question of, if they pull it off, what is the US going to do? My guess is, like the space race back 60 years ago, the United States will move the goalposts. So we had, during the Soviet era, the first to get to space was the first deadline. Like, let's get to space. And the Soviets blew us out of the water there. So the United States said, nah, that wasn't our goal. Never our goal. We want to go to the moon. That was always the goal. I think we're going to do a similar thing. When China successfully gets to the moon, I believe that whoever is president, whether it's Trump or someone else, we're going to say publicly, no, we weren't trying to go back to the moon. We've already been there. We're going to Mars now. And who will make it to Mars first will then become what's written about in the history books. Chad, what do you got?
Yeah, that was definitely phenomenal. I agree with everything you said. I do want to add a few things about the favorability of them beating us. It is over 50%. You know why? We had showcased episode 4, the Lanyu Moonlander, and it showed it descending from the heavens. And it's a completed lunar lander from the outside and from what we know, the inside. It's a final design. Starship's not a final design. They keep moving the goalposts too. They keep actually making it bigger as they keep not fully getting into orbit and exploding all the time. They keep making all these changes, which kind of confuses me. Maybe you'd want to stick with the design and not update the engine too much. But that's SpaceX for you, and they're doing the iteration model. But China's doing it, let's just build it right the first time model. And that's why I think they're over 50%. And we need to get our butts in gear if we want to beat them to the moon. Otherwise, we're going to say what Jacob said. Oh, we were never going to the moon. We're just going to go to Mars and surprise everybody on it.
Chad, I actually disagree with you. I think SpaceX has a completely different goal than NASA, and that's what the problem is here.
In that too, yeah.
They never wanted to go back to the moon. They're just contracted to do so. Their goal, per Elon Musk, has always been going to Mars. So it's unsurprising that they're iterating Starship. They're stalling because they're trying to go somewhere completely different. They're trying to make Starship as good as it can be for that much longer voyage over to Mars instead of dealing with the moon.
Yeah, and the thing that bugs me is, you can kind of tell they're doing that. They're loading they're loading Starlink poopers on the Starship, which is outside of the contract of being an HLS, a moonlander, which is a huge contract violation. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, Elon is serious about going to Mars, but the problem with that is, does he have any hardware to show for that? No, other than the construction out at the Cape, that's the only thing we have. We don't have a single metal bent. We don't have a single piece of metal bent for the actual Mars or moon lander. We're only seeing something coming out of Texas with something that, of course, poops out Starlink satellites.
Well, back to China for a second. You said that they're doing it fast and the right way. I'm kind of worried that they're trying to do it quick and dirty.
They're doing a moderate pace, but the right way. They're not experimenting as they go along. They're just taking their time with the previous flight research to develop this lander and their infrastructure to go to the moon. Also, keep in mind, they're using existing rockets like the Long March to launch that lander. So they're not even doing what SpaceX is doing and building a complete rocket from the ground up. They're going to take advantage of the Long March technology to at least get the lander there. Of course, I'd say 80-85% of their tech is being involved in that lander development. So before we move to break, I do want a little update here. It just came in. China has a little bit of an issue with their space station. They had a spacecraft that had some holes punched into it from probably micrometeorites. They were able to get some of the taikonauts down to Earth safely the other day, but they do have a few stranded taikonauts up on their space station. Trying to think of what the space station is called up there. So there's a few taikonauts still up there on the Tiangong 2 space station. So let's hope that they can solve this issue as soon as possible, so we don't have to do a rescue mission, or something worse could happen. Other than that, yeah, just kind of wanted to fill you in on something that is going on in space that you should be aware of. But we're going to take a quick break again, and when we come back, comments from our last show. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we're going to dig right into the comments from last show, and the last show was, what will science look like in 10 years? If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And our first comment comes from Tommy Lovelace from YouTube. 2 bar atmosphere inside space vehicles will increase humans' resistance to microgravity and increase plant growth by... This is an awesome comment. I had to feature it because it had the by at the end. But I had a tough time trying to answer, like, where he was getting at. Does he mean resistance to microgravity as a good thing or a bad thing? Because why would you want to resist that?
I don't know, Chad, but I'm in love with the bye.
Me too. But my thoughts on that is, if I was in microgravity, I just want to float around. And we don't have any other comments, so we're going to round out the show. If you stayed with us this far, please consider subscribing so that you're actually aware of the next show. And also, don't forget to leave a comment if you had any questions earlier about what we were talking about, especially the Lagrange points. So I know that got our audience a little bit confused. But with that said, I'm Chad, your host, and
I've been Jacob.
And I'm Crystal.
And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.